I'd like to call tonight's meeting, Committee of the Whole, November 17th, to order. And may we have the roll call, please.
Mayor Ron is absent tonight. Mayor Pro Tem Trustee Klebanow.
Present.
The clerk's here. Trustee Emery is absent. Trustee Fleming.
Here.
Trustee Nero.
Here.
Trustee Scott.
Here.
Trustee Seneca is absent. Manager Searle.
Here.
Attorney Zemanek.
Here.
Public Works Director May. Here. Police Chief Mulhern.
Here.
Human Resource Director Casey. She's here. She is here. Deputy Police Chief Gunther.
Here.
Acting Community Development Director Malik. Here. Acting Finance Director Mark Parker.
Here.
Okay, can we all stand and have the
I
pledge?
did Frank, didn't I?
Frank?
Did I do you, Frank?
He's here.
Fire Chief Drought. I thought I called you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The minutes of November 3rd and November 7th. Any corrections? We are missing our voting summary, but we will have it Monday. Okay. No corrections? Okay.
What's that?
The voting summary. It's just missing.
He doesn't believe me.
It's okay. We'll get it tomorrow.
Oh, okay.
I know he did it.
Okay, that'll be in
On
there
the
for
first
Monday. Any other corrections we can do on Monday? Is there any open forum?
No.
No open forum? Okay, reports. For the mayors, on here it talks about we have a Progressive Village Performance Network charity donations, and it says November 21st. I guess that's going to be taken up
Yeah,
next
that will
Monday?
be on Monday.
Okay.
And then the other item as well.
Okay, and that's the leadership recognition. Okay, thank you. And the items, I do have a question. I couldn't get kind of a little busy today and couldn't get a hold of you, but when I was looking over our signed ordinances for November 7th that we just got in the email, if you would check on them, number 187, 88, 89, 90, and 91, they say 4 yeas and 2 nays and 0 absents, and I think it's supposed to be 2 absents, no nays. But was one of those the one on, I'm trying to think of what, I did a nay last time.
Mm-hmm.
Was one of those ordinance, did we do an ordinance on that, or because that was just to say we were going to discuss it later, did we even have an ordinance? I can't remember when I was reading them, I didn't look at the titles. So I didn't know if 187, if you can check your records between 187 and
yeah.
191.
You're referring to the ordinances that the clerk's office distributed.
Well, it's the one for the, when we were discussing the single-family homes for rentals.
Yes.
If there was an ordinance on there,
No,
okay,
we
we didn't do it because it was
postponed
just, we just voted to bring it up.
Postpone it. Mhm.
Okay. Well, we didn't postpone. I thought we just voted that we would bring it up. I didn't realize, I don't know if it was postponed. Anyway, if that's not on there, that's fine then. We have 4 yeses and 2 absent, so we're no nays. The other 2 ordinances, 185, it says P-185 and P-186, they were handwritten in by the clerk and mayor and hand-signed by the mayor. And they were okay. They did show 4 yeses and 2 absents.
Those were the proclamations.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. I did notice then that they were hand-stamped, and I didn't know if they were hand-stamped, if the mayor or clerk actually had a chance to review those to see that the voting tally was wrong.
Proclamations themselves?
No, the 5 items that I need you to change from the 2 nays.
Okay.
Let me break this down.
Yeah, I'll have to check that with the
And what we voted
clerk.
on was,
The rental?
was for consideration at upcoming village board
Okay.
meeting.
Yeah, I just thought about that when I was on the train, as long as there was no ordinance for that one vote, then it was fine.
So what you're looking at is the tallies that were on the actual ordinances themselves?
Right at the bottom of the ordinance.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll verify that against
Yeah,
our
it should be instead
our
of 2
notes.
nays, they should be 2 absences on
Right.
all 5 of those.
We'll double check those.
Okay, thank you. Okay, outside of that, I really don't, I don't have anything else on my agenda. I'm presuming some committee people will be talking about items on their agenda, so I just would like to, since Monday I won't be able to say it, I'd like to wish everybody a happy, blessed Thanksgiving and see them all on holidays. And that's all I have. We'll go to the clerk.
I was just going to remind everybody about holidays and Frosty and Friends Parade on next Friday night, kicking off at 6:45 p.m. On Monday, we will have the I Love Westmont contest winners here. And the meeting will be followed by cake and refreshments being served in the, what do we call that? The overflow room.
Empty room.
To celebrate the village's 90th birthday. So we'll have all that. There's a public information meeting at 6 o'clock on Monday. And there is also a finance and admin meeting at 6 o'clock on Monday in the executive session room, and the public information meeting room will be in here. So
Both at 6 o'clock.
both at 6 o'clock.
Okay, thank you very much. Attorney?
Just one item. I passed out for everyone a copy of the Open Meetings Act, one section of the act that was amended recently to require all elected and appointed members of a public body to complete electronic training for the Meetings Act put on by the Public Access Counselor of the state. And so that would mean all board members, planning and zoning commission members, et cetera, something that can be done online, and it has to be completed within 1 year from January 1st of this upcoming year. Thereafter, if a new member gets appointed or elected, they have to do it, I think it's within 90 days. So I just wanted to make you aware of that, and Madam Clerk, I assume you will be coordinating efforts for everyone to get the training once they let us all know when and how it will take place.
Yes, no problem.
That's all I have.
Is that an annual?
Nope, once you do it once, you are set for life, unless they change the rules again.
Okay, thank you. Village manager?
Thank you. I would just like to request an executive session for 3 topics: potential land acquisition, personnel, and pending litigation.
And what was the litigation?
Pending litigation?
Pending, okay. Okay, thank you very much. No items to add on? Wow, thank you. Trustee items, we'll start with Trustee Scott.
Thank you. I'd like to send my condolences to the Rosanna Rico family. She passed away last week. She was the wife of a former village board member, Michael Rico. So I'd like to send condolences to her family. I attended the school board, State of the School address this afternoon. The clerk was there, where Superintendent Burning of the Marker District 60 and the Superintendent Carey of District 201 were there and giving the presentation on the state of the schools. The accomplishments that District 60 has made has been very good, and you can see, if you go online, you'll be able to hear everything. But Superintendent Burning made a great presentation for her school. The real surprise was Superintendent Carey, though, on what he had to say and his vision with the school board's vision of the future of District 201. And I would encourage every resident who lives in District 201 to listen to that presentation, because I would say it's probably the most important thing I've heard that's come out of that district ever. So it'll be a great surprise to many people and something to look forward to. So, and I think that's it for me tonight. Thank you.
You? Trustee Nero?
I have nothing tonight, thank you.
Trustee Fleming?
Nothing this evening, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, unfinished business. Water rate analysis for fiscal year 2012. Board to consider an ordinance establishing the policy of pass-through of DuPage Water Commission water commodity rates changes.
We started this discussion some time ago at Public Works Committee. We've had some conversations at the Administration Finance Committee as well. We were given some direction to look at establishing a policy where we would automatically pass through future commodity cost increases, I'll call it that, that start with the City of Chicago and are passed through the DuPage Water Commission. As many people know, there's been some very significant recent publicity about what the city is planning to do in terms of future rate increases. We had a further conversation about this. We passed out a chart here, and I'll let our Public Works Director explain, kind of give you an overview of this chart. And then I think we're going to talk to the board a little bit about some direction of how we may want to change our code. Right now we have specific water rates listed in the code, and given the discussion that we last had about the automatic pass-through of the commodity cost, but looking at annually our infrastructure and our capital costs, that maybe we want to remove those actual numbers. So I'll let Steve May kind of explain that, and then we can get into more of that policy discussion.
Well, we do, I guess, just generalize for people listening, we do, the Village of Westmont and many DuPage communities purchase water from the DuPage Water Commission, and then we resell it, redistribute it through our own water main distribution network. DuPage Water Commission receives their water from the contract with the City of Chicago. So when we talked about our water rates for this current year, back at the committee meeting, as well as in previous years, our rates are always based on what our local needs are, in addition to what the DuPage Water Commission is already forecasting that they're going to be changing their rates too. So we learned all this, and we knew what the forecast was when we talked about this last at Committee of the Whole, was last September, just this recently. And this projection for the DuPage Water Commission, these changes in their fee, stands as they do now, but that does not take into account recent changes that the City of Chicago just announced, and they're going to be drastically increasing water sale fees of DuPage Water Commission being one of the customers pretty drastically for the next 5 years. So Spencer, the Finance Department, put this side-by-side comparison for you. We have the, over the next years, you have the current rate at the top, and what the City of Chicago is charging for water, of which the DuPage Water Commission will pass through and add their incremental increase, and then add that to what our fee was. We agreed to break it up into two components. One is the normal operating costs, and then the capital costs for future improvements out into the distance. On our end, we did have the initial increase, but our rates over the next 5 years are on this chart staying the same, and they will stay the same, but you as a board, ask that each year we revisit that and make sure that this increment is stays in line with what our needs are and doesn't need to be adjusted, whether it's up or down. But forecasting this out, our rates do not change, and then the total is in here. So, very quickly, and in round numbers, in 5 years from now, water rates will be about double what they are right now, is a good way to put it in perspective. To put that, what does that mean? This is a rate per 1,000 gallons of water used. Statistically, both in town and in DuPage County, a typical family of 4 uses 15,000 gallons a month. We bill bi-monthly, so that's 30,000 gallons of water. And their bill for 2 months is about $76 now. So that will be closer to $140, $150 5 years out with this proposed changes with Chicago and DuPage Water Commission. So we've already, accepted the water rate study plan for our internal needs. That's what we approved and, adopted back in September. I guess the question tonight is, do we, there wasn't, the September action, I believe, did not have a time frame of when this became effective either. So our plan was to put this into effect with the meter readings that begin in January. And the question was, these pass-through of the DuPage Water Commission, we don't see the Chicago Water charge directly, but we do see it indirectly in what DuPage Water Commission charges us. So the question is, each year when DuPage Water Commission, when we know they're going to change their fees, do we automatically pass that through, or do you want this brought back each year for presentation? And I guess, John, you were asking about whether we should physically publish the rate in the code.
Yeah, I remember from, boy, the first time this discussion came up within last year or two, there was a concern about when the time the DuPage Water Commission publishes an increase in rate, gives notice to the village considers it, sometimes it goes to committee, it eventually gets to the village board then implements a corresponding rate increase. There's been a 6-month or more lapse that the village has lost out where on
It's about 6 months, yeah.
on revenue.
Right.
So the direction from the board was, let's pass this along automatically when we receive notice. Currently, we have the rates published in the Code of Ordinances, which is what most communities do. In order to change those then, this would have to come back before you. As soon as we get notice from the DuPage Water Commission, it would come back before you and there'd be an automatic increase in the rates based on whatever the rate increase was that we received. We would put in a policy, and I passed out kind of a sample water rate adjustment policy that would say it's the intent, or it's the policy of the village to pass along these rate increases received from the DuPage Water Commission. That way, future boards would not have to kind of go through sending this to committee again and analyzing it. It would just automatically get on a board agenda. There could be, what at most, a 30-day delay.
Right, or we would already know when it would go into effect. So we know when the DuPage Water Commission's changes occur. So, we could have it far enough in advance that we could have it in time.
That'd be almost simultaneous.
Nearly simultaneously, within the next reading, so within 2 months.
And then if there were additional rate increases due to infrastructure and maintenance costs, then the board could consider those separately. And again, if there was a change, there would be an ordinance passed reflecting what the rate change would be. The alternative is to take all of the published water rates out of the Code of Ordinances and instead have those maintained by the village clerk and posted at the clerk's office, and give the clerk authority or some other official authority every time there's a DuPage Water Commission increase. They just automatically change the rates internally without having to come back before the board, although there'd be notice to the board. Just saves a procedural step. There's a lack of notice to the public in that it's not part of the published Code of Ordinances, but it is on file with the clerk, and the ordinance would state that the current rates are on file with the village clerk.
Well, they're going to notice real quick. The public will when they see the rates, and I think that's something the village really has to step up and say, this is the time, when the new rates come out. We have to let them know immediately that that's going to happen.
The
Give them a little heads up.
What's that?
Give them a little heads up. I'm for, not having us to bring it through committee all the time, but to just have the clerk change it automatically and without notifying the public before they get a water bill that's, a significant amount higher. I don't think that's such a good idea.
There's no transparency on that one.
Yeah.
Right, except that you pass an ordinance saying here's the policy and it's going to happen, which most people will be unaware of. All they're aware of is that they get a bill in the mail, and I think the rates are published on the back of every bill. But you're saying along with that, maybe a notice with the bill, your rates have increased due to a DuPage Water
Yeah.
Commission rate
Yeah, it
increase.
has to say something.
In that newsletter or something, yeah.
We will know in advance.
Okay.
This
Yeah, it's in
increase
advance, we'll
reflects
get-
the increase from the
Well, if
Water Commission.
if we give the, change it where it can be an automatic and it doesn't have to keep coming before us, should we or the public expect an automatic, should it ever happen that the rates get decreased? Are we gonna automatically decrease?
They're not
Good question.
Well,
They didn't the last
to
time.
answer your question, right, but with the recent issues with the DuPage Water Commission, their progressive schedule is to recover from their current deficit. So in the foreseeable future, that will not occur. The only way the rate would decrease to the resident is if our portion, if our increment went down sufficiently to counteract whatever the DuPage Water Commission increase is. And that is something that in either scenario, the Westmont capital and the Westmont operating fee does have to come back to you each time. So you'll see it at Public Works Committee. You'll see it, you know, a half a year in advance. We'll start talking about, we're going to do the analysis annually, and Public Works Committee will get a report. And we'll either leave it the same, suggest an increase, or suggest a decrease.
But if we ever got to the point where that was a reality again, where there might be a decrease, the board could always do a rebate. We've done those before. That's always an option.
Do we have to put anything in writing about we could do it if there was a decrease, or just put it in there, should there be a decrease, it goes before the committee at that point then?
I mean, it's a matter how you want the policy to read. What I'm suggesting is you could just simply bring it up as a discussion point and do a rebate, leave the policy as it is, and handle it on a case-by-case basis. Honestly, I think the chances of the rates going down are very, very slim. Water is becoming a more and more scarce resource, and the value of it is going to continue to rise. You know, I'm not going to say never, because I've seen too many things in my lifetime that I thought would never happen that have happened.
It has happened, so.
Yeah, but I mean, that would be one way you could handle it, as a rebate at the time of the.
I just don't want to lock something in so it looks like we'll only, you know, we only do the increases and we'll ignore the decreases. I'd like to at least make sure it comes back for discussion.
Actually, everything we're discussing, to clarify that, is we are going to take whatever they're charging us and pass that through and add it to our increment. So if theirs went down, in both scenarios, the rate would go down.
That's what I'm questioning. So it would go down?
It would go down.
Okay,
yes.
that, just want to make sure.
Right.
I don't want to keep just calling it an increase.
Yeah, we're just, that's the,
I want to be
that's
careful.
the pessimistic forecast that we have today. Right.
So I just didn't want to make sure it didn't go through and saying we pass on the increases, because then that means we don't have to pass on.
Oh.
If they do lower it, we could.
It's a good point.
Should we change
Pass on the rate change.
Yeah, I was going to say, maybe we change the
To
word
just say the
increase to
rate.
say change, right?
Rate change.
Pass through the rate.
Rate adjustments.
Yeah.
Okay, that way we can.
Then you're
it's
covered
a-
up or down.
Right, then then we don't have to worry about any rebates and stuff. It'll automatically take care of itself then. Okay, I'd appreciate
And
that.
as long as we notify the public, everything.
Yeah, I do think, I do think on the water bill or someplace, we have to let them know when it's gone up, why it went up.
How much advance notice do we get?
Well, we already, I mean, they've gave us 5 years advance
5 years,
notice.
okay,
I mean,
so-
they'll still adjust it. In fact, tonight, I believe, is their meeting where the DuPage Water Commission is voting on passing through the Chicago increase. So we'll know tomorrow, well, we'll know before Monday, that
It
this
might be
projection
nice-
is accurate.
It might be nice if we notify the public at least a month advance before a new rate increase happens.
Yeah, actually, what we're talking about will make it easier to make these notifications in advance, because like John said, we're always reacting and we're always 6 months behind.
Yeah.
And, well, typically in the recent past.
So what is the direction about keeping the rates in the Code of Ordinances or removing them and stating that they'll be on file with the clerk? Is there a consensus?
I think it ought to be on file with the clerk, because, I mean, then you'd have to go in and change it every time.
Yeah, I do think that's a good idea.
Okay, and then if there is a change to based on the infrastructure needs, costs, maintenance costs of the village, as to the village's portion, right, that'll come back to the board. The
Yes.
board will vote to approve that. It won't appear in the ordinances, but it will appear on the rates on file with the clerk. Okay,
Clear as mud?
clear as day, actually.
Thank you. Anything else on the water rate? Thank you. Okay, then, new business, proposed aggregate property tax levy. Board to consider an ordinance determining the proposed aggregate tax levy in the amount of, wow. There's a lot of numbers in there, $7,479,880.
All right, good evening. This was an agenda item that was discussed at the last Administration Finance Committee meeting, and the board is familiar with this. And we're doing this basically the same way we've done in previous years, where this is one of the first steps. At this point, we adopt the proposed aggregate levy, and then sometime after 20 days from now, we will then be adopting the final levy after a public hearing. And we're currently looking at doing that in the second meeting in December. And so right now, this is just what we're putting out as the aggregate levy, our initial thoughts on it, and then we can adjust it before we actually adopt the final levy in December, and then adjust it at a future time if that's the board's direction. So right now, what's the proposal in front of you is to maintain static revenue for the village operating accounts and to increase the police pension contribution in line with the previous decision of the board that we wanted to fund at 105% of the previous year's annual required contribution as determined by the actuary. So that's what's being proposed right now, is simply increasing the police pension property tax to cover the needs of the pension fund, and then maintaining the rest of the village operating revenues just the same as the extension for the previous year. Are there any questions on that?
Does this get put out for the public?
Yes, this can be published in the newspaper if it exceeds 5%. We can also publish something, have it available at the clerk's office for their viewing.
Okay.
Yes.
It won't be on a website where they could link onto it, maybe?
Yeah, we could certainly put it on our website. Yep. Certainly do that. Anything else? All right.
Anything else?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Comprehensive annual financial report, board to consider an ordinance for acceptance of the fiscal year 2010-11 comprehensive annual financial report. And welcome back.
Shouldn't have gone back to my seat. Again, this is another item that has come before the board at the past Administration Finance Committee meeting, where our auditor Dan Berg was there and was able to answer some questions, go through some of the different pieces of the comprehensive annual financial report. And at this time, we're asking the board to accept and approve the comprehensive annual financial report for this past fiscal year ending April 30th, 2011. I know board members of the committee meeting, it was the first time they'd had a chance to take a look at the CAFR. I don't know if there's any additional questions I could answer or look into for you. To answer any questions there may be. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Go ahead on number 5, 6635 South Cass Ave, Ashton Grove variance extension. Board to consider an ordinance approving a 36-month extension to the previously granted density variances.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Tim Ryan, and I'm here in regards to the property at 6635 South Cass Avenue, asking for an extension for that property for the variance to construct a 16-unit condominium, basically due to the real estate market. I still have 12 units to sell in the buildings next door at 6655 and 75, excuse me, South Cass. I've also asked for a 36-month extension. Last time I was here 2 years ago was a 24-month extension. I don't see it improving in the next year or two. But then prior to the meeting, I talked to the village attorney and asked if the extension, or pardon me, if the variance could be granted instead of a 3-year, just make it permanent. And he said that's something you guys could discuss. That's it.
Have you rented out some of those units?
I just recently, actually, I tried to hold up as long as possible. Probably about 2 months ago or so, I put 2 up for rent. They didn't rent out though. I tried to hold off as long as possible.
The units you have up that aren't sold, are they finished inside, or are you waiting for buyers to finish?
Yeah, they're not completed yet.
Okay, so the people who buy it still have some selections.
Selections, yeah.
Okay. I know it's a bad year. What does the board feel about the time span? The 36 months to leave it open?
No,
Leave it open?
no.
36?
I think we have to put some kind of a time frame on it. I really do.
Opposed to permanent, you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because who's to say what's going to happen in year and a half, 2 years, 3 years? Because if, say, something would happen, you would decide to sell that property. Now, I don't know if that would go with the property or not, but
Yeah,
it would travel with the property, wouldn't it?
Well, wouldn't that person then come in and ask for a zoning change? Or, I mean, I don't plan on that. Obviously, that's why I keep on coming in every year, every 2 years, because my plans are to build that, but no, you know, I don't know what's going to happen in the future. Nobody does.
Well, that's why we're doing a comprehensive plan that we're working on, too.
No, I understand
We
that.
don't want it to happen. So,
Well, that's what I mentioned to Tim, that,
Yeah,
you know.
I understand
You can
that.
certainly ask for a permanent extension, but in light of a comprehensive
Right.
plan review, and you never know what future boards may think about density, there's some reasons to keep a time limit on it.
yeah.
Or if you're inclined to do a permanent inspection, you'd have to have some limitations on that.
Sure.
I wouldn't necessarily favor a permanent variance myself.
I got no problem with 3 years. I mean, at 36 months, I got no problem with that. That's fine.
I don't either.
Yeah, and I mean, like I said, I could come revisit. I just didn't know if you want to see me here every year, every 2 years. You know, after a while, it's like, you know. So that's the, you know, I just brought it up tonight. It was the first time I even thought about it.
No, it's a nice thought too, but I also thought it might open up a can of worms for future developers trying to ask for the same, you know,
Understand?
if we gave it to you.
No, I understand it, and actually, somebody brought that up. I think Shannon brought it up, so.
Now, out of your, you said you have 12,
I have 12. I've sold one this year. I sold one last year.
saw that in your note. Now, how many are in a building?
There's 16.
16.
Mm-hmm.
So you practically have a whole building left there. Okay. Well, I have no problems with the 36.
I do not know.
I'm okay.
That's fine.
It's fine.
Yeah, we'll be glad to.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And have a good Thanksgiving.
We'll see who's here on
You too.
Monday.
Too.
Take care.
It'll be up for vote on Monday. Okay, number 6, Walgreens, Class 5 liquor license. Board to consider an ordinance increasing the number of Class 5 liquor licenses by 2 and decreasing the number of Class 6 liquor licenses by 2 to allow the liquor commissioner at his discretion to issue licenses to Walgreens Company at both Westmont locations, 1 East Ogden Ave store and 8 West 63rd Street.
Thank you. Good evening. The request comes tonight from Walgreens. As we know, we have 2 Walgreens in town, one on Ogden Avenue, one on 63rd Street. Currently, both Walgreens have Class 6 liquor licenses, which allows for the sale of beer and wine only. Walgreens approached the village with a request to go to all liquor. I attached a letter to the board action request outlining some of the reasons for the request, including the Ogden Avenue store being a flagship of Walgreens. As you know, that's one of the cutting-edge new designs for Walgreens, and they want to use that as essentially a beta test site for some of their new products, for some of the new security measures, for managers from outside of Illinois to tour. And with, you know, conveniently located at 63rd Street, Walgreens would be also a natural selection for going to a Class 6 liquor license, or excuse me, a Class 5 liquor license. Also, coincidentally, the person that's in charge of the purchasing manager, is a Westmont resident who conveniently lives a half mile from the 63rd Street location. So, you know, going to, you know, to implement all these things is convenient for him as well. Just a little bit of background for Walgreens, the things that I did not know before I talked to some of the representatives. 75% of sales for Walgreens is made up by their pharmacy, and of the remaining 25%, 2 to 3% is in actual liquor sales. So these are, you know, some of the, you know, compelling arguments that they let me, you know, aware of. You know, obviously they're in competition with other retail establishments, and they certainly want to stay competitive with other places that sell both pharmaceuticals and alcohol. With that, any questions?
So it's beer and wine right now?
Correct.
And they want to add the hard liquor?
Correct.
Okay. I had problems with their letter here because it certainly didn't seem like they were speaking English here. I've never maybe it's all attorney language here, but it says these 2 locations are targeted as we can set current state of adult beverages and future state of adult beverages in a live setting. And I'm like, what are they trying to say in here? And you know, they did talk about their test store in a live environment. And I'm reading this thing going,
Yeah, as a law enforcement professional trying to speak the same language as a retail professional, we had some dialogue so I could be clear on some of the things that he was trying to describe in his letter. He was using terms I had never heard of as far as, I mean, you know, the research is kind of ingenious. They can tell you that 73% of their customers are female. They can tell you that they're 2.9% or there are 2.9 items in each shopping basket on average, and which is $12 without alcohol and $50 with alcohol. So they really do a lot of number crunching. And again, he used a term, market basket, I think is one of the terms he used, but that's nothing more than somebody just picking something up at a store and walking to a cash register. But so yeah, the live environment is essentially that. It's
Okay.
the store in action. It's walking in and buying something.
yeah, prior to any national changes, we would use the 2 location test signs, which I didn't understand, test signs,
That should be test.
merchandising concepts, education, security features, et cetera. And I'm like, okay,
I didn't judge the letter based on grammar,
well,
but
it must
there
be
was,
something.
yeah.
They're above my level, I'm sure. But basically, they're going to be putting it in both stores.
Correct. And as far as, one of the questions I asked, I said, so you have beer and wine now, and the question I posed was, are you replacing some of that product with liquor, or are you keeping that current stock and adding liquor? And it was the latter. It was, they're keeping the current stock, they're adding an aisle to add the liquor. And essentially, by the comparison, you know, not for him to use a comparable, but he said very similar to what Osco has across the street from the Walgreens in Ogden.
On 63rd, I don't remember if did they end up finally getting their liquor license? Because they took it away. They didn't want it for a long time. They stopped selling liquor. All the Walgreens were
They do have it, and
back beer and wine.
According to the manager I spoke to, liquor is new to Walgreens, but again, you know, they're going that way because liquor and pharmaceuticals are sold hand in hand apparently these days. So who'd have known?
That just doesn't sound right.
No.
Yeah, it doesn't, it's not coming across right, but that's exactly what it is. He said you have the choice between going to Osco and filling your prescription and buying what you need to buy, or going to Walgreens, which you can only get one of the two.
It's convenient, yeah.
That's marketing.
One-stop shopping, huh? No, I remembered when they pulled it away because they actually had full liquor, hard liquor and everything. And then I remembered they came back and said they didn't want their liquor license anymore. And I thought back then the reason was somebody in the very close Walgreen family had been killed by a drunk driver or something, and they were eliminating all alcohol whatsoever. And then I started hearing they're starting to bring it, you know, the wine and beer back, but now they want to go full. But that's still considered a test place down on 63rd Street? So
It's not. It's because it's in close proximity to
They
the
just wanna
store
make
on,
sure.
right. But
Okay.
remember, there's two, and you still have the old, the current, or this, I guess the old one now, the 63rd Street store design. You have the new store design on Ogden Avenue, and they want to implement nationwide alcohol sales in both types of stores. So they still need to do testing even in the old design, because the layout's different than obviously the new design, so they still have to, you know, it's basically two separate entities because they're two separate floor plans.
yeah, I don't even know where they're going to put them. They seem like they're so well stocked with so much stuff. I haven't figured out where they're going to.
Yeah, it seems like something will have to be sacrificed somewhere in
More
there.
of a convenience for them because the stores are so close.
Correct.
Yeah, I can see them trying to compete against across the street. So, you know. Any other questions from the board? Okay, thank you. And that'll be on the agenda for Monday. Number 7. Do you have anything you needed to add about that or any questions? You're okay?
Yep.
Thank you. 2-12 West Ogden Avenue, Board to consider ordinances approving the following of the former Shell gas station property located at 2-12 West Ogden Avenue. A, limited area groundwater ordinance, and B, limited environmental indemnity agreement.
Passed these materials out at the last board meeting and asked that this be placed on the agenda. There was, the owners believe, due to spillage from the tanks, overflow spillage when cars were filling up at the Shell station at Cass and Ogden, some limited petroleum contamination in the soil. They reported to the Illinois EPA. They've submitted a corrective action plan to the IEPA, and part of that requires a groundwater restriction ordinance that prevents any properties within a designated surrounding areas from using well water as a potable source of water. You did this recently with the Shell station at 63rd and Cass. Village ordinances currently prevent well water use as a potable source of water anyhow. And I think attached to the ordinance was a map that depicted the area. None of those properties are currently on wells, although properties nearby, as I pointed out in the summary, in Liberty Park are on wells, but they are outside of the area identified by the Illinois EPA, which I will point out from personal experience, they kind of overcompensate when they draw the map of protected areas. That's not, what?
Intentionally, they do.
Intentionally. They treat it as if the contamination is still, there's an ongoing source of contamination, even though there isn't. So they have a larger area that is subject to this restriction than is probably what is necessary. Related to this ordinance is the indemnification agreement, and that is because the plume of contamination extends potentially into the right-of-way, and although the village does not own that right-of-way, we do, under an agreement with DOT, maintain the sidewalks there, and we've got water mains there. So if we were ever to do work that involved soil disturbance, Shell or the former Shell owners would come out and test and remove the contaminants, or would reimburse the village's costs for doing so, and indemnify the village against any claims in any manner relating to this contamination. So from my standpoint, I'm comfortable with this. I think Public Works is cautiously supportive. Anytime contamination's mentioned, they'll never. Yeah.
Since it's by the water pipes, do we have any concerns? Should there be a main break in that area because of the contaminated soil?
No, you need to work on the main break? No, just the cost of the disposal of the materials. Any water main break is actually, as they learned tonight on, south on 65th Street there in Cass. But you work with the water main live, so it's always bleeding when you're working on it. So
it's going to keep the contaminated
right,
soil away.
Right.
Okay. It's not going to cause any. Would it cause for us, if it causes us any extra labor because of this, not just getting rid of the contaminated soil, would Shell be responsible for any of our extra cost and labor should we have any issues?
I can't think where that would occur, but the indemnification is, our extraordinary costs. So,
okay.
And actually, when I look at there is an email from the attorney representing the former Shell owners, and included in there is the modeling showing the plume, where the plume is contained, and it has on their former Shell service station. And that plume is actually located not within the Cass or Ogden Avenue right-of-way. It's located in the back of the site.
Doesn't it go around all the way around here? Looks like it goes all the way around, including into the parkway. If that's a different, oh, okay, that's something different. I'm looking at this.
Yep, that's for the groundwater restriction.
Okay.
Ordinance.
And it wouldn't matter if it's identified today. That's what that radius is for, is to guard against unknown or missed, detection or movement, of the plume.
Right. The plumes like this, when it's a low-level release of petroleum products, degrades over time and actually shrinks back into itself, depending sometimes on topographical features. So the chances of this plume, when there's no further release of contaminants spreading, is rare, if impossible.
Because it's no longer an active gas station. So what they're doing now in the repair end won't cause any extra contaminants?
Well, I wouldn't say that. Depends on how they're disposing their oil and their oil traps and things like that. But presumably, no. That's all inspected and taken care of, and there are regulations about how they have to deal with it.
Because that's what the current people, right? That wouldn't be
Current
with
people
Shell.
are a service station. They're not the former Shell owners.
Yeah.
And a service station like that is not typically a known pollutant like a gas station is. This wasn't a spill from an underground storage tank issue. This was an overfill issue, according to their attorney.
Okay. Anyone else have any questions? No? Okay. Thank you, Steve. Okay, illegal deposits on public right-of-way, board to consider an ordinance revising the language used in code sections 70-20 and 70-21 for enforcement clarification.
Yes, and if I could, the item 8 and item 9 are similar type. It's to revise code sections in all cases that I'm going to continue to describe, but they're all just for clarification. There are no, they do not constitute any changes in our current policy or anything, just for clarification purposes. So this is housekeeping. Item 8, you referred to section 20 and 21. Those are deposits. It was titled in the public right-of-way. 20 and 21 in the code as they exist are separate sidewalks from streets. So the changes made occur in both sections, and mostly what we did is it refers to, I'll start with the deposits on sidewalks. It goes in there and describes examples of what deposits on sidewalks would constitute a hazard, but the section already identifies or any other materials that would cause a hazard in the right-of-way. So one thing that we run into every year and frequently, and we last talked about this during last winter, was deposits of snow out into the public right-of-way, whether they were plowed or snow blowed or physically removed from the private property and deposited out in the right-of-way. So the language in here adds, for clarification, after waste materials, it adds landscape waste, leaves, vegetation, and snow. This is to aid code enforcement and enforcing this section. You'll also see paragraph C that was added there. It doesn't say anything new, but it does, that's to better describe the phenomenon that goes on where, just one example would be where an entire parking lot is snow plowed off the property, across the right-of-way to the other side and deposited into the parkway on the other side of the street. So that practice is defined here, and when you read the same description in section 21, that's for streets and alleys. Section 20 is for sidewalks and parkways. It could all be one big right-of-way section, but the current code is separated into the two topics. Moving on to 71 through 77, this also is for clarification, and there's two clarifications being made. The first one is there's a repeated change in there you'll see where changes to reference to the Public Works Director, and that's not me objecting to what's going on in there, but when we, however many years ago, we eliminated the position of the village engineer, there was a blanket throughout the code, all references to village engineer were changed to Public Works Director. In this particular case where this insertion or replacement was made, it doesn't make sense because it doesn't actually occur, in the Public Works Department. So you'll see those references, and instead of declaring an actual position or title, it just says, in the offices of the village. Currently, and for, historically, this is for permit activity. So when someone's doing new construction that's going to be a public improvement, whether it's sidewalks or sometimes streets, these requirements are permit requirements. So they already have to hire an engineer and do the design and provide that for a permit, and then we just do the inspection. There's code references in there where it says that the village will be staking the line and grade, and we've never done that ever, but there's references to it in there, so those have been eliminated. And elsewhere, the section where it says costs for any services that we provide are always passed through to the applicant anyway, whether it's for permit review or any extra services. So that's pretty much the extent of the changes in there. So there is no substantive change, just language.
Any board members have any questions? Okay, that took care of 8 and 9,
Yes, it did.
so, okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Moving along to the finance ordinance number 14.
Waive the reading.
Thank you. Okay, and purchase orders. Anybody have anything on purchase orders? I think I saw most of everything on the purchase orders were budgeted, if I, okay. Nothing on purchases, okay. Executive session, let's see if I have this correct. We're going to have an executive session for potential land, is it
Land acquisition.
Land acquisition.
Land acquisition, personnel.
personnel and
Pending
pending
litigation.
litigation. May I have a motion?
Motion approved, Scott.
Second, Nero.
Ready? Trustee Scott?
Yes.
Trustee Nero?
Yes.
Trustee Klebanow?
Yes.
Trustee Fleming?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. We're adjourned to executive session. Have a nice evening.